Hello everyone, Kevin Stevenson here with GetMeTheGeek.com, and today we're going to look at virtualization on the TrueNAS Scale. So if you've been following along, last time we've been did some stuff with the TrueNAS, and now we're going to do a virtual machine in TrueNAS Scale, and it's going to be a Windows server, and I'm going to walk you through the whole thing. So let's get started. All right, here we go. Boom. Here is my TrueNAS Scale machine here. So if you go back to the dashboard, remember this is a TrueNAS Mini XL Plus, and it has a CPU is a Atom C758 in there. So there you have it, 8 cores. I think we have 32 gigs of RAM and everything. So first off, we're going to go over the virtualization section. Now it says add virtual machines. But before you do that, before you do any of this, what I want to do is create a storage spot pool for this. So if you go back in here and you see that, Tank is our main storage, IX application is where we kept the Docker and Kubernetes stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and create another data set in here that will be for, so you just go up here, click on the ellipsis over here and add a data set, and we're going to call this VMs. And that's why I'm just going to have a spot that has virtualization on it, and we're just going to leave everything like it is, right? So now that's going to give me a VM storage. So when I go back over here and I start creating the virtual machines, they're going to have a place that I can go that's consolidated. You don't have to do this, but I like to do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that virtual machine. If you see it like this, and my head's in the way, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust this guy. So I'm over here. That way we can see this a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit larger also. And right. So now we're in the add virtual machine area. So the first things first is you're going to want to know what kind of machine are you making. You click on these little question marks, and they really kind of give you a good idea of what they're looking for here. But in this drop down, we're going to choose Windows machine, and we're going to call it SRV 2019 because that's what we're going to do. We're going to install a server 2019. We don't need to give it a description. You can, of course, obviously, local time UEFI boot. And start on boot, enable display, BNC, bind it to whatever, all the IP addresses, and hit next. Now, then we're going to talk about the CPU. So you got virtual CPUs, cores, and threads. And so what that ends up being is kind of how, if you had multiple sockets, so you can have like a dual socketed motherboard and servers, or 4 sockets and more sockets, and those are physical CPUs, and then you got virtual, and then you got cores in there. So that's kind of how this works. We're going to give it 4 gigs of RAM, and we're going to hit next, right? So this is where we start talking about the disk space, right? So we're going to create a new disk because we don't have one existing, and what is that type? So we're going to do it with the AHCI or VirtIO. So if you go with the HCI, you're more than likely your Windows machine is going to recognize that off the bat, and boom, 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 be all good. VirtIO is probably going to give you'll have to install drivers to get it up and running, and to see it on the installation. Now, if you go ahead and click the question mark, it just says select your desired disk, right? And then where do you want to put it? And we're going to put it in the VMs location like we made. Now, so ACHI or VirtIO. I'm going to choose VirtIO. And a 40 gig drive, I've got plenty of space, so we're going to make this 256. Because honestly, anything smaller than that, Windows just doesn't have enough space. Now we're at the networking section. So the safe bet is to use the E1000. Your Windows is going to recognize it off the bat. But you can do VirtIO, which we're going to do here also. And the VirtIO is going to require you to have disks. And then you need to pick which NIC you are connected to. So this is important. If your TrueNAS has multiple NICs installed, you need to pick one that has that you're using. So you may only have one line plugged in there, and so you got to pick one or two or whatever that is the correct one. If you have multiple lines plugged in, you can pick which one you want. So I'm going to leave this at 1 because I believe that's the one we have plugged in. If not, it'll be easy to do. So now our installation media. So if you've already uploaded your ISO somewhere on your TrueNAS, then everything is golden. You can just navigate to that location and put it and get it. However, we're going to upload that ISO, right? And now it wants to know, where do we want to save it? Well, let's just go to Mount, Tank, and VMs is where I want to save it, right? So we're going to choose that file. And so the files I have are these right here. This is the Windows Server install, right? Open it and upload. So what it's going to do now is go ahead and just push that up there to your TrueNAS. And that'll take a second. So we'll just pause right there and come right back when it's done. Okay, so now that's completed. We'll go ahead and hit close on that. And so we've uploaded that file. And then we're going to hit next. All right, so GPU. If you go in here, you can select the GPU. We're just going to leave that blank because I think that's all you need to do. And then hit save. Okay, so that's going to create the VM and get it going. So now it is created. The state is off and it's set to auto start. Let's go ahead and expand this down here. You can take a look at what you have here. So here's the details of your virtual machine. You can start it here. You can edit it. You can delete it. Add devices. You can clone it, and you can download logs. All right. So let's go to the devices area here, and we'll look at, we've got a display, NIC, disk, and CD-ROM drive. So I'm actually going to add another CD-ROM drive to this, right? And there's the pick a path, right? Pick a path where you want it to go. I want it to go here, and device order, right? So save. Now, if you go and you take and you edit the CD-ROMs, you'll see this right here, right? And then you can click on the ISO. Well, I'm going to need to upload another ISO, right? So because I need to have, let me just edit this one. And you see how it's listed there, right? So what do? You have to upload a device. So there's lots of ways to do that. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a way to do that right here. There's no way to do it. What you have to do is upload it in there manually. So I'm going to show you how to do that too. Easiest way I found is to use like SCP or up there on your machine. So I've got a program called WinSCP that will let us do this. But in order to do that, here we have to turn on SSH. So you have to go to Services, and you go down here to SSH, and you see it's not on or anything like that, right? So let's go ahead and click Edit on that. And one of the things you need to do is allow a root password. And so I recommend you temporarily turn this on and then turn it off when you're done. So let's go ahead and do this. Log in as root allowed, and then allow password authentication. Click Save. Go ahead and flip on SSH, right? So it's unchecked, so it's not going to be on if you reboot, but you want to go back and turn this off when you're done. We're going to do, so here's my WinSCP. I've got it. I've copied all this information. This is the same as what I have up here, except for I do that. Then I'm going to hit log in, right? You're going to hit yes. It's going to connect. And now you have that location. Here we are. I need this VirtIO disk in order to be able to get the drivers I need. So if you go in this file structure in your TrueNAS, if you go into MNT, which is mount, you're going to find your ZFS volume. So you go to tank, and then you go to VMs, and see there's the ISO that we uploaded. We're going to go ahead and take this ISO and move it over there too and upload it. Now we can disconnect. Yes. I can flip off SSH. I can go back to my virtualization. expand back my machine, go back to the devices, take the second CD-ROM drive, edit it again, and then when I navigate down here to VMs, you're going to see that VirtIO disk. So we're going to go ahead and do that. What else is there in here? So under devices and the disks and everything, I think you can change boot order. You see that right there? Change boot order, device order. That's how you can change that. So we're not going to change anything right now. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to start this guy up. Now that it's started up, you're going to see that there are more things in here, right? So I've got restart, power off, stop machine, edit, delete, devices, clone, display, serial, logs, and everything, right? So let's go ahead and hit display. And then what we're going to see here is this startup SH. But so what's going on here? Let's go ahead and go over here and hit this Control Alt Delete. Oops. And then so I capture the device. And so that kind of happened a little bit quicker than I was expecting. So what happens is when you want to boot off the CD-ROM drive and you don't do anything, then it just goes on. It says, oh, but so you have to get a hold of that, capture your input, and click in there, and then hit any key in order for it to boot off your CD-ROM drive. So you notice here's the tiny core, the everything, and now it's booting up in the server 2019. So let's go ahead and hit next. Go ahead and hit install, and more than likely, what we're going to see here is that there will not be any hard drives or anything for it to install. The reason why that is we chose VirtIO, and Windows by default isn't going to have the drivers for that. That's why we needed that CD-ROM drive. So, and I will show you how to get to that VirtIO driver disk too. So while we're waiting for that to boot up, let's just, oh, there it is. So here is our versions of server. So you can do the server 19 standard, do it with the GUI experience. You can do data center and data center with the GUI experience. We're going to choose the standard with the desktop experience. Click next. It's going to give you this EULA. So you go ahead and click that. Click next on this stuff. And now custom install. We're going to go ahead and click that. And boom, like I said before, there are no drives there. So you can hit refresh. Oh, everything's missing. What do you do? That's what we got here. So we'll give that just a second. We're going to go to load driver, and then it's going to give you the option to browse. So because we went ahead and attached that other drive, so you see that D drive is the VirtIO. So we're going to go down here. I'm going to go into AMD. We're going to go under, and this is an older one, so we're going to go into 10. And I'm going to hit OK. So that's where it's going to see, now it sees that Red Hat VirtIO SCSI controller. And then we hit next, and it's going to run that. Here we have the drive. And I'm going to go ahead and click next on that. Let's install that, and it's going to install the operating system. And then I'm going to flip over, and I'm going to show you how to do the VirtIO stuff. Okay, so for VirtIO, what you're going to end up doing is, so you can just search for VirtIO drivers. Proxmox pops up really easy. It gives you an option to go, and it's going to be the same for any KVM guest. So you can download the latest stable right here. And that's going to go ahead and give you those drivers. So if you go up here to this Fedora group, and these all come from Red Hat, that's why it's under Fedora, you'll see right here all these different driver versions. This is 1024 is the latest one. And let's see, the one that I have here was 171 that I happen to have on there, which is going to be back here from 2019, which is totally fine. So really what I want to get is the latest and greatest ones. So you'll download update those. Anyway, get the latest one. So that's that. Here we are doing the install just like a normal Windows, and we'll come back to that after Windows is set up. All right, so here we are back. Because this wasn't a Windows Server install tutorial, I went ahead and skipped through most of that, but I'm going to show you, you'll see once you're installed there, you're going to see that there's missing devices, things like I don't have networking, things like that. So that's why it's also important to have this VirtIO disk. And I went ahead and got the latest and greatest VirtIO while we're doing it. So you just go in here And now what you want to do is go into that VirtIO disk, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and since this is x64, you can click on this guest tools, right? So double click on that guy, run it, and it's going to install everything. So we're going to go, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and open up the device manager, and that'll give it a second for these things that we're missing here. Okay, so that just takes a second to come up, and then you're going to get this, where you're going to have to go ahead and agree to install this. You have a nice little penguin, and click install. And now, as we watch this go through here, we're going to next through everything, accept, and next, it's going to install the drivers. Then here, you're going to see this balloon, which is going to help with your memory, network, and all these other things that it's going to install drivers for. So you can adjust them, but just leave them as default. That's what you're going to be best at. And hit next, and then click install. And as we do this, we're going to start seeing these things over here in the device manager disappear. There's 1, 2, and all of a sudden we have network. Because remember, we chose the VirtIO networking also. And boom, now they're all gone. Hit finish. It's going to install the Spice driver, guest agents. You notice the resolution changed a little bit, and now it's going to want to restart. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And here we are. We're back in there after a reboot, and things are still booting up a little bit here. But as soon as the server manager goes away, I'm going to minimize that, and I'll show you a few things, and we'll look at the device manager and show you a few of the things that it installed, plus a couple other things. Here we have, I've got the device manager open. You'll notice that everything is all recognized in here. So on my processors, it's going to show that it's the virtual CPU, and that's what we chose. Now let's look at the disk adapters, and you'll see there's a Red Hat or display adapter. So that's going to be this Red Hat driver. And then same thing under the disk, you see that VirtIO SCSI drive. So we go under the storage controls, you're also going to see that Red Hat VirtIO SCSI controller. And so that's kind of how that works. Now, that's a couple things to note. If you right click on here and you go to display settings, you're going to have the ability to adjust your display now. So you can change that if you want to go, all the way up to 1920. We'll just do 720p real quick. Keep changes. Boom. And so that there you got a 720 display, and it's nice and good. I'll also go ahead and look at the task manager, which I think I actually have open already here. So you're going to see here's our CPU. I went ahead and bumped it up to 4. We got 4 gigs of RAM, and we have Ethernet. So let's go ahead and look at this. We're going to go open the network settings, and I'm going to go down to Network and Share Center, and you're going to see the Ethernet adapter here, and you're going to notice that that's a 10 gig network. So when you use the VirtIO, it thinks it's 10 gig. Now, if you were to use that NE1000, it's only going to have a 1 gig. So depending on how your situation is set up, you're going to get some advantages or disadvantages based on what network driver you choose. Now, internally, if you have two or three VMs and they're all using that VirtIO 10 gig, they can talk to each other 10 gig internally. But if you only have a 1 gig connection to your TrueNAS, then out externally it's only going to be maximum 1 gig. However, if you had a 10 gig connection, you could go ahead and see that whole 10 gig through if you're using the 10 gig in the virtual machines. And, because of the virtualization, there is some hits there. But if you use that NE1000 and you have a 10 gig connection to your TrueNAS, you're bottlenecking that artificially. So that's why I chose the VirtIO. And so that's that. And so it is all set up and running. Now let's go back over here to our dashboard, because I put 4 cores. This is an 8-core CPU, and you can see it's not really hitting it. Of course, that machine's not doing anything either. But where you get the hit is in the memory. So you get services down here using 8 gigs of RAM. Because that's going to be your virtual machines in there. So you have to be careful that not to starve your ZFS for memory when you're using these virtual machines and things like that. So, and that's how that works. And you'll see down here, here's my network connection. This bump here is when I was probably transferring data. Okay, so there you have it. That's setting up a virtual machine, Server 2019, virtualized using KVM as your hypervisor inside your TrueNAS Scale. It's very capable. It's honestly, KVM, QEMU, and all that stuff is very powerful. And so there's a future with TrueNAS Scale of becoming a hypervisor in addition to the other things they can do. So it's really great for your small businesses and for your home labs and things like that. So if you're looking to do this, this is a good option. We'll see you next time. If you like this, you got something out of this, go ahead and smash those like buttons, subscribe to my channel. We got more TrueNAS content coming up, more Proxmox content coming up, and virtualization servers and networking firewalls and all kinds of good fun stuff. So if you like that stuff and you want to learn more about it, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Everything helps me out. I appreciate it very much when you do that, and hopefully you're getting something out of it too. We'll see you next time.